Good morning, good afternoon and good evening to the final round of the 2023 Club 100 Heavyweight Sprint Championship, ending where it all began not that many months ago at Buckmore Park. Although last time at Buckmore Park it was much drier this morning. There was some rain overnight, and being so cold and so sheltered, the top half of the circuit took a long old time to dry, despite the fact that the bottom half of the circuit's okay. So first race of the day, we're starting on pole, get a fantastic launch. It was a good bit of timing in terms of we received a small bump from behind, which helped us to accelerate quickly. And straight away, deep into the first two corners, searching for that grip. There was no grip on the inside at this time of the day. You'd just keep sliding forever if you tried to go there, because it was the rubber from the Saturday that had been laid down there. But as we come into hairpin 2, the false start flags are a-waving, and we're going to have to go around and do it again. Probably deemed to be maybe a little bit of an early start from myself, maybe deemed to be a bit of an unfair advantage for the pole side of the grid, but this time, same again, leaving it a little bit later this time, but the anti-pole side of the grid just really not getting a good getaway, and this time pretty much same again, maybe a little bit deeper this time, and you can see the carts behind are much closer as we go around the first two corners. But as we go into hairpin 1, taking that deeper line, searching for that grip, and we're managing to hold on to first position for the time being. The surface around Buckmore Park a bit different to how I had remembered it being when it had been wet the year previous. That might be partly down to the different tyres. We skip ahead forward and lap a little bit, and as we look behind, we can see Kurt Home from the charge getting himself up into second place as we go through Garda, and just the lines that I was trying to take during this first race just didn't seem to be paying off as I would have liked. I think a few of the guys benefited greatly from running the practice session before this. It's not one that I tried to get into it, but I was a little bit too late as Kurt manages to get up the inside going to hairpin 1, keeps on the outside of hairpin 2. Don't want to squeeze them too hard onto the grass because that would definitely be a penalty towards us, but really not able to square the car off. Kurt does a much better job this time at getting that nice straight exit coming out of hairpin 2, and we can only tuck in behind, going down the hill now. It's again trying to get the car to sort of rotate a bit more, but just really couldn't get that back end to do what I wanted to in this race. As we skip ahead a little bit more, we've got Glenn Orford now coming up the inside of us going into turns 1 and 2. Going to try and go deep and cut back underneath, but not really able to get that. Would have been going too tight from the second apex and probably started sliding a lot, so we're having to stick behind for the time being, look up the inside, a little bit of a tap as we go through the exit of that corner. Nothing intentional, just the way that the cart's moved, and that allowed Glenn to keep that position. But this time he goes wide onto that paint. We're up the inside going through the S's, and owing to that trip onto the paint, it really hurt his momentum. But at the inside he comes. We're around the outside searching that grip, a little bit of a bump, but we're managing to secure it as we go down towards paddock corner. All this fighting allowing Kurt to really stretch his legs at the front of the field, but no one's really catching up with us at the moment. Going into Garda, we go a little bit deeper, look at that cutback, but Glenn is able to get a much better bit of rotation on his car, and that allows him to get up into second position. And that's pretty much how this race would stay. Glenn would pull away from us a little bit during the mid-race, and then towards the end we would catch back up and make it a little bit closer. But P3 for heat number 1, not awful. As I say, from last round we're battling Kurt Walker for this C2 championship, and third place would better his 5th or 6th place, I think it was, in his first heat. But this time we are with Carl Walker. If we go across the line, we were meant to be side by side, but as you can see, we're definitely not side by side as we went across the start-finish line. And Joe Holmes in the blue, white and orange helmet, who had started 13th on the grid as we crossed the line, was actually level with us, and that's pretty typical of Buckmore Park. The pole side of the grid really does get an advantage on that launch, and we've gone backwards at the moment. We're really fighting for these positions. We've dropped backwards 2 positions behind Lee Henderson, now in 10th place, and got it all to do. And seeing as this was a race where Kyle was also in it, the goal really was to try and either be in front of or not too far behind. But at the moment that doesn't look like it's going to come out too well. Going at the inside of paddock corner, 3-4 wide for a moment. Lee Henderson being forced all kinds of wide. We're stuck in the middle going into Garda, and we get squeezed there going in. The no control for myself in terms of being able to get that kart moving. It was just waiting for the karts around us to disconnect from us. We managed to get the inside going through the cafe. Nearly get the position taken there, but as we go in towards the first corner, get waved through, probably thinking that being on the inside was not where they wanted to be. And a chasing pack now looking to try and take our 9th position off our hands, whilst we are looking to try and move forward. Callum Sigafus there, another one of the good C2 drivers who had a little bit of a rough mid-season, but otherwise would have definitely been up in this championship fight with myself and Carl. And that's where it would start calming down. As we go in through the first couple of corners, we can see karts behind playing around with that slightly tighter line, and this time it's working out. We have to sort of have a little bit of a think of how we're going to defend against this going through hairpin number 1. We managed to get a bit of a cutback. That gives us good traction as we go down towards hairpin 2, but Callan's still on our inside. We get caught out a little bit by the driver in the green helmet. Callan's up our inside, he sort of muscles his way through, and in all that, it was deemed that I'd forced a driver wide, who's Ed Gordon, in the white and sort of majority white, blue and red helmet, who's just gone, we've just gone round the outside of going down side sweep. But yeah, it was deemed that we'd forced him wide and caused him to lose position, which I tried to argue after the course of the race, saying that there was lots of us close together, there was a bit of rubbing from everybody. How is that then being put on one person? But there was none of it. So we now are carrying a +4 position penalty as we go up the hill. Callan Sigafus 90 degrees to the corner, causing a 3-car collision and spin. There's me seeing my penalty as I come across the finish line, but a very scary incident, a very fast part of the circuit, even in these wet conditions. Not somewhere you want to be heading backwards at speed, but that puts us up into 7th position, 11th after adding the 4 position penalty onto this point. And we have a look about going maybe deep and cutting back, but we're able to do that anyway, get a good cutback over the inside of hairpin number 2, and that puts us up into 6th position, which is where we would finish on the road, but then getting the P10 finish after the 4 positions were added. But you can see the circuit is starting to dry as we move ahead into heat number 3, where we are starting 13th on the grid. We've had our front, we've had our middle, and now we're having our back start. Kyle is also in this race, so another one where we need to try and be close to, if not in front of Carl, which we're doing at the moment. He gets a really good launch off the second apex of turns 1 and 2, and it goes deep into the first hairpin, looking for all that grip, which works out nicely for him. I wasn't able to follow because I was confined to the inside going to hairpin 1, try the outside at hairpin 2, but nothing doing, and we are having to settle in behind Kai Crawford in 10th position as we go through the first third of the lap, which is a problem. Seeing as Kai was able to make some really good progress through that first lap and hold position and get a little bit further forward, even though we've gained 3 positions, we now have 4 karts in between myself and Kyle, and it's getting very fighty. And as we know from kart racing and any forms of racing, when you start fighting with people, you are losing time. Tried to have a little bit of a cutback going through and up towards Cafe, but not able to hold the momentum through the first left-hander as we bottom out through the hill, and that would mean that we only gain 3 positions off of lap number 1. Through the first 2 corners, still wet, but there is a noticeably higher amount of grip through there than there had been first thing this morning. First hairpin is now pretty much dry, although it's still kind of wet on the inside. We have a look at the inside here, and not able to make that work even though we had the position. We have less traction, but the driver in front goes off the circuit and managed to hold that position. So yeah, not sure about that one. If you're going to go off circuit to keep a position, that's possibly advantaged by track limits, but it wasn't called, and we're going to have to make the position on the road as it is. Going down towards Garda, can we make a move here? Maybe, but maybe not. Not really enough grip on the inside there. We end up making contact. That hurts the kart in front's momentum, and we're able to get a bit of a switchback as their line through that bottom corner up before Cafe is not suitable. Jumping ahead now, we're in 9th place, lap number 3. Kart in front gets all kinds of sideways as they go through the apex of hairpin 2, and we are able to get a better drive coming through, and that brings us up to a little battle with Lee Henderson following Kart in front. A few laps go by where we're sort of just trying to make progress on the karts in front. We're now behind Lee, and as we go down towards the hill, we know that he's in his super heavyweight title battle, and we don't really want to cause him any problems, but we are also conscious that if we do not make progress here, we are going to be in a very disadvantaged place as we go into the finals. Try up the inside of Lee, gives us enough room, and we just about cut back and get it in front of him as we go through the sort of corner at the bottom of that dip there, up towards Cafe, and that's us up into 7th place as we move from to lap number 5 and skip forward again to see if we can catch up with the carts in front, which we would do by the time we are coming on to the final lap of the race. We'd be gaining a lot of speed and time through the downhill section of this Buckmore Park circuit on the carts in front, which is, I believe, Kai Crawford and Stuart Kirk. I think that is in front. My little preview window's a bit too small to be able to tell the helmet, but I think it's Stuart Kirk who had a fantastic day. And especially considering it's super heavyweights tend to be a little bit slower than the heavyweight class, just through physics and being a bit heavier. But as you can see here, going down through the hill, we're going to go for that move up the inside of the paddock. We're squeezed and sort of run out of room by Kai as we go through the corner, put right onto the apex where there was very little grip, and we end up going into the side of him, and that would be it. But we have one last chance up towards the hill through Cafe, try a bit of a cutback. Kai gets a bit sideways, losing momentum, but it's not going to be enough for us this time as we cross the finish line, and we end up P6. A very average set of results compared to the rest of the year, and it put us at a big disadvantage going into this A final. 19th on the grid, the lowest by far we've started this year in possibly the most important race of our year, and it makes it very simple based on the fact that we've lost points over the course of these heats. We have to finish in front of Kyle. If we want the championship, we have to finish in front by at least 3 points. Feeling confident going into this race though. Pace had been good in heat number 3, despite the fact that the race position at the end of it wasn't too good. We're on the inside going through the first 2 corners, which is good for us. As we move up, we're into 15th place already going through the first couple of corners, and then as we come towards the first hairpin, there's a spin in front of us. We lose all momentum and we end up essentially at the back of the field. 20 seconds as we start our way down the hill, having got ourselves up into 15th, possibly able to get into the low teens maybe by the end of the cycle if that hadn't happened, but we now have it all to do. Try and have a look at the inside of Callan Sigafus there, but nothing doing, weren't able to get alongside enough. Callan, who incidentally had a very good run in the B final and got himself up into the A final after having that big accident, or I should say accident, that collision in heat number 2. 20 seconds as we start the second lap. As you can see, there's a defined dry line going through the first 2 corners now, which enables us to keep even more speed going through there. We're able to get up the inside of Elliot Alt as we go through the first hairpin. Now that's dried up on the inside, but hairpin 2 pretty much stayed wet all day, even though there was a bit more of a dry line going through it. If you went off that line during the course of this race, you had no grip whatsoever up into 21st place as we go down the hill behind Scott Parker. I believe that is the distinctive Dayglow yellow helmet as we go and up the inside of the paddock corner this time around. And we're seeing if we can follow Callan through as he tucks himself up behind, I think that's Kai Crawford. Again, not sure, my window's a bit small, but we've got ourselves up into 20th position, so we've managed to move forward a little bit from having been spun round. Having been caught up in the spin as we gain 2 more positions, 2 drivers off on the outside of turn number 1. You see Callan there raising his hand to signal that he's notified, or recognised rather, the yellow flag going through hairpin 1, and we weren't able to make a move through that section of the circuit. Drivers in front having a little bit of a look as we go through Garda, getting very, very busy. We try going around the outside of Kai Crawford, but that doesn't work for us there. But it also doesn't work for Callan, who ends up running a bit wide onto the water as he goes up the hill, drifts wide onto the apron of the circuit, and we're able to get up into 17th position, looking for more, seeing if we can get a bit further on. As we go down towards hairpin number 1, maybe could have had a think of it going into there, but we try and get a good exit as we go in towards the second hairpin. Manage to get the inside of Kai, but then get attacked ourselves as we come through the corner, having lost a bit of momentum. Steve Bosley there gains more momentum than us, but he runs wide into us, clips us, loses all our momentum, and we're back down into 21st. We skip forward onto lap number 6, still in 21st position, But we gain a little bit of fortune this time as there's a bit of a collision going through Garda, and we're able to go from 21st up to 16th in one corner, owing to not being right in the middle of that group and able to pick our way past it as it managed to get a little bit too close for comfort. Skipping forward onto lap number 10, that was a period of the race where we were just trying to get our head down and catch up as quickly as possible, maybe giving us a chance, but at this point I'd kind of semi-resigned myself to the fact that this was going to be a race for pride. As we have an initial look at the inside of Glen, not really able to get the move sorted there, but we are able to get a better exit than I thought maybe would be possible now that the circuit's dried up. Managed to keep it side by side going through the S's, which is only possible if you've got a very compliant driver, which Glen is, and managed to run side by side through there and gain the position, and another one going through paddock as we went past a stricken super heavyweight at the bottom of the hill up into 14th position. Seeing if we can gain any more positions going down through the last quarter of this race. We've got Steve Bosley and Steve Linley up ahead, both of whom had penalties, both of whom could potentially make it tricky for us to progress further on, because they're both quick drivers and we want to try and get past them even without the penalties to see if we can maybe make one or two positions up afterwards. Skip forward onto lap 14 behind Steve, really trying to give him a bit of hassling, and he's there trying to chase down Steve Bosley. Not really in a position to make the move going through Garda, but he does run a little bit wide through the apex. We try sneaking it round the outside, or inside that becomes the outside if we go back down the hill, but nothing doing there. But it does a little bit put Steve on the defensive. Going through the first two corners, keeps a tighter line going through the first part than we do. We're able to gain that speed back going through the second part of the corner, and then again through the first hairpin. We're starting to feel good through there. We're going to have a little bit of a think going into that second hairpin, nothing doing, but Steve keeps it tighter than we do. And then trying to get a better exit, nothing doing that time. We have to tuck back in behind Steve as we go down the hill. All this fighting is allowing Steve Bosley in front to be able to pull away from us a bit, which isn't ideal, and this move needs to happen. It needs to happen now. Defensive going into the paddock corner from Steve. It's going to hurt his momentum as we come up towards Garda, but that's going to put me on all of the wet stuff, which I don't want to happen, and risk taking out Steve in the process. So he's tucked back in behind to try and get a better run as we come up through the hill. Completely dry now as we come up through Cafe and down to the first two corners. Final lap of the race, final lap of the season. Can we get one more position at this point? Unless Carl has an absolute shocker and spins out, the title is his. Well deserving. He's raced absolutely fantastically all year, especially getting that result at Ella Park as he did. But our season is not over yet. We still want to finish strongly as the runner-up in C2 as we get a good cutback on Steve Linney going down towards the S's side by side. Managed to get just in front. Steve's has behind, and now he's got one more chance going down towards Garda. Have a look over our shoulder as we come through this corner, and he's not in a position to attack. Have another look over our shoulder. He's just about there, but we do as he did to us earlier, giving him only the option of wet part of the track, which he does not take this time around. As we come up towards the start-finish line, it really does sink in. After what could have been a C2 championship, a poor final round has meant that we are runner-up this year. We say well done to Steve. It was a good bit of racing there at the end of the race between me and him, but extreme disappointment. Throughout the midpoint this year, I felt like we had a really good run of form, especially the start of the year as well, but this sort of last third of the championship just haven't been able to come away with the best results, especially compared to the start of the year, whereas Kyle has had an absolute storming end to the season, and that's what has eventually clinched it for him. If we have a look at the championships tables, we can see that we scored more points over the course of the year, but with this being a format where you drop your worst scoring rounds, despite the fact we scored more, it would mean that we ended up coming in a few points shy of the class championship. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. As always, until next time, Have a good